This talk is called How Professional Service Providers Create Value. Let me give you a little bit of context. I'm Hector Garcia, I'm an accountant, and I used to charge by the hour. Basically, I had an hourly rate. Our customers came to me. I counted the number of hours that it took me, or my effort that it took me to do the work, and then I invoiced my customer an invoice based on hours. It's a horrible business model. I ditched that and I implemented something called value pricing. Value pricing, in a nutshell, means that I try to understand what is the value of my work to my customer, what is the value or the outcome to my customer, and what is the actual desired outcome to my customer. And once I understand those things, I try to discern what is the value to them for me to perform that work or for me to deliver that value. Then once I have a general idea what that value is, I can maximize my services by pricing them just below the value that I create. As long as the value I create is larger than the price that I charge, we're going to have a win-win situation. Now, I have learned value pricing from many people. One from Ron Baker, from reading his book, Implementing Value Pricing, probably the principal source of information that I needed in order to implement value pricing. I've also learned positioning from Tim Williams, a book called Positioning for Professionals. Excellent book. Positioning is a really important piece of creating value. I've also learned a lot from Blair Enns with his book called Win Without Pitching Manifesto. I think those three books have influenced me the most in this concept of value pricing. Now, this talk is called How Professional Services Create Value, not necessarily price. However, it is implied that if you create value, if your work is worth more, you can essentially price more, and that should be a pretty good encouragement in order to listen to this and implement some of the things that I'm about to show you. I believe that there's 8 opportunities to create value for our customers. There's actually a lot more than that, but within the context of professional services, we're going to focus on just 8 to create a framework and to get you thinking strategically when you're going to make a decision about what you're going to do and what you're not going to do to promote your firm, to create value for your customers, or to structure your business as a whole in order to maximize the value you're creating for your customers. The only thing that matters in business, the only secret sauce, the only secret to success is, can you create enduring value for your customers? Do your customers recognize that value, and are your customers willing to pay to receive that value from you? If you can do that, you will be truly successful, regardless of what industry you're in, regardless of whether you sell products or services. But I'm going to be focused on a professional service provider. Let's go through the 8 opportunities to create value real quick. We're going to have 1, positioning value; 2, availability value; 3, pricing value; 4, understanding value; 5, performance value; 6, results value; 7, membership value; and 8, tail value. Again, I think there's many other ways you can create value, but I think those 8 create a pretty good framework. Let's get started and let's talk about positioning value. So when we talk about positioning, there's several legs to this concept. Number 1, we have our brand promise. What does our brand promise to do? What does our brand have reputation of doing? What is our customers' perceived value of just working with us because of our brand, because of our company, because of what we represent? Those 2 things are really, really important. You can think of this as your brand promise, something you voicefully say to the world. You say, we promise result A, B. We promise quality levels of X, Y, and Z, right? So we could promise that, and that could be explicit. There could also be brand promise that's through reputation. Like, everybody knows that this brand is good, and that helps you, right? So you want to create the goodwill in the marketplace, so you have a promise of high reputation. You can also think as your testimonials or your online ratings as part of how you build reputation. Another area of positioning value is whether or not you are specializing. Do you have a specific horizontal specialization? Do you have a specific skill? Is your business designed around fixing a very specific problem, and that's the promise they make to the world. They tell people that you specialize on that and you don't mess with anything else. This is what you do. This is what you have built a unique skill set for. That's a horizontal specialization. The second one is called a vertical focus. Means niching down or targeting a specific type of customer, either a specific industry, a specific company size, a specific geography. There's different ways to create vertical focuses, but it is different to specialize on a specific skill set or a specific problem versus specializing on a specific type of customer. This is two types of specialization. You can do both, or you can just do one of them. The other part of positioning is, do you have authoritative content? Do you have videos? Do you have blog posts? Do you have social media? Do you have articles? Do you have books? Do you have content out there where people can see that you are an authority in that specific area, whether it's that a niche of industry or whether it's a specialization of skill? Do you have use case? Can you prove that you've had customers with the same problem that your new customer has? Can your customer prove that you've done the work before? Is there a work product that people can check? A lot of customers ask for references. So if you ask for a reference and you talk to a previous customer of that service provider and that customer raves about it, or can show the new customer the results of the work, that's a use case that has tons of value. All that stuff happens before you even talk to the customer. All that stuff happens before you even have your very first interaction with your customer. You can do all that work behind the scenes, and you can always be building up that positioning value, and should always be creating that positioning value, because to me, when it comes to marketing, positioning is the most important thing. Remember, positioning is the space in your customer's head that you occupy. It's what you stand for, and also what you stand against, what you're uniquely positioned to solve for a unique set of customers. That is positioning. That has a ton of value when it comes to marketing, probably the most type of value. Now let's talk about availability value. This is an interesting one. Are you available, right? So if you are available or you're not available, that can have contextually value unto itself. So if a customer calls your office and you're available immediately within the hour, maybe that's good. That's a good value, because customers say, wow, that's really fast response time. But also it can cast some doubt. It's like, this person's not busy at all. They don't have customers. I'll give you an example. When you go to a restaurant and the restaurant's packed and there's a 2-hour wait time, most people don't want to wait 2 hours. Most people in the right mind would go to a different restaurant. But there's a perception that because there's no available seats, right? There's a scarcity of open seats. People say, wow, this restaurant must be good because it's busy, because there's a lot of people in it. So depending on the context, availability or scarcity could be used strategically to create value. Some of the things that we think of is limited releases of a specific product, right? Or maybe an artist will create only 100 replicas of a particular piece of art, and the less that they create, the less available that they are, the more scarce that it is. It could create contextually its own value. Professional services is a little bit different, but I think that you need to balance it. Like, you need to be very available, but also not be widely available, so the customer doesn't perceive that you are not good, or you don't have that many customers, right? That could be seen negatively or positively, depending on the context, depending on the customer. I just want you to make sure to know that there's value in both sides of the coins as well. So we also have response time. So response time, as I mentioned earlier, if you respond really, really quickly, that adds a lot of value. And that's something that you may want to focus on. How quickly do we respond to people on the very first interaction? Also location, right? Are you physically close to the customer? That could create some value. In other cases, it's the opposite, right? So when customers hire you and you are from a different state, you're from a different country, but they hire you because you're the expert at it, and maybe they feel that they can't possibly find such an expert in close by or within their location. The fact that you're somewhere else creates this, strange type of value that you're just sort of coveted. You're difficult to reach, and you're sort of one in a million, and that's why the probabilities of you being close to your customer are pretty low. Also, the ease of communication. How quickly can customers contact you, or how quickly or how easily they can contact you. Are you available to talk via email, via phone, via social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, right? So how easy your customers communicate with you, and the perception of how available you are for communication can create a lot of value. And one of the most important ones is the first interaction process. So when the customers first call your office, email you, how not just how quickly the response is, how good the response is, right? So was the response relevant? Did they try to help me first before they try to sell something? Were they available? Were some of the skilled people at least partially available to quickly assess the situation for the customer, rather than going straight into a sales call or a sales pitch? So that's a really important one when it comes to just general availability. Now let's move to pricing value. Now, this gets a little complex because typically pricing is sort of the result of the value, but sometimes the input of pricing itself can actually affect value. So I'll give you an example. Pricing integrity. So if you don't change your prices, if your prices are consistent, if you don't discount your prices, right? So you get rid of discounting or don't allow discounting. Apple's a good example of this. Bose, the speaker company, it's another example of this. You're not allowed to change the price. Whatever the manufacturer says the price is, it's across the board the same price across all the channels. So pricing integrity comes into play, and that could be also part of your pricing strategy. Now, part of your pricing strategy could also be, we bill by the hour. We charge up front. We charge in arrears. We value price. We fix price. Or we have subscription-based pricing. So your pricing strategy could also intrinsically increase the value or decrease the value of your services. There's also something called the price point, or the comparative pricing. So although I price based on value, that means that I only give a price once I understand what my customers' needs are, and we typically can't publish that. In theory, our customers don't really know what price point we're in. But as a service provider, you can position yourself as someone that's not average price or not low price. Comparatively speaking, maybe you're going to be the highest or one of the highest in maybe multiple quotes that the customers get. So creating some branding around what price point you're in, or comparatively speaking, what price point you're in, it's very important. Do you want to be amongst the most expensive? Do you want to be amongst the least expensive? Or you want to be somewhere in the middle? There's some strategy that you can implement when it comes to that. There's also price options or choices. Now, do your customers have different ways they can work with you? Maybe they can start with a low price, get their foot in the door, and maybe increase or upgrade to something that is higher or more expensive, or a more complete type of service. Can your customers sort of upgrade, right? Is there an upgrade value, and for paying a lower price now and upgrading later? Now, discounts can be used in some cases. They can be used for very limited timing. So, for example, if you use a price strategy where you have price integrity and you don't discount, but maybe you discount a customer for a specific personalized circumstance, like they're paying up front, and maybe you do a discount based on that timing. Or maybe they're hiring you during your low season, and at that point you will discount, but it's understood that you're doing it because maybe it's your low season or your high season. So I'm normally against discounts as a whole. I think discounts decrease your value overall, but many companies have been able to use discounts strategically, especially when they tie it to special timing that doesn't feel that you are begging for the business, or you're really begging for that sale. That is really more of the timing that your customer's taking advantage of, rather than you lowering the value of your services through discounts. The next one is understanding value. Some of the things that we think of is scope of work, right? So did we understand what is it that our customers needed? Did we have a needs assessment? Did we have a value conversation, right? So are all those three things happening, right? Did we take time to understand our customers' needs? Did we take time to understand what our customers value? And when we presented the solution or presented the scope, did it make sense? Did the customer feel this person understands me? This person understands my business. This person understands my problem. This person understands my needs and my goals. If your customer can answer those questions and the answers are yes, you created understanding value by doing all those things. Then we have performance value. Performance value, I like to think like of the customer experience during the process or at every touch point. I like to think about tableside guacamole for this, right? So you can go to a restaurant, almost every Mexican restaurant, you order guacamole, it's somewhere between $6 and $10, right? But if the restaurant does tableside guacamole, where the chef comes out and they basically make everything in front of you, at the end, it could be the same guacamole. It could taste the exact same if they did it behind the scenes. But because they did it in front of you, they provided an experience. And because of that, that can create value. That's a performance value. To stay within this kitchen analogy, we've been to kitchens or restaurants where the kitchen is completely closed. Now, closed kitchens where you can't see through them, they're typically a lot more of a mess because the customers can't see it than a kitchen that has a see-through, basically no wall, right? It's got a glass and it's see-through, and everybody in the restaurant could essentially walk in towards the bathroom or whatever. They can see exactly what's going on in the kitchen. Now, a kitchen that is see-through is going to be much more clean, and it's going to need more staff, and it's probably the cooks are probably going to have to be a lot more careful about at least not giving the perception that there's a mess or there's dirt anywhere. So you can really, really increase the experience typically by making certain points of your work product visible. In other cases, you want to make certain things invisible. Giving our customers too much access to the process, that could be a negative experience. So for example, imagine that you were forced to watch your surgery, like physically your surgery after you had a surgery, or you were forced to watch a similar surgery before you go into surgery, and that's not going to make you feel really great. So if you're forced to see something that you don't want to see, that could decrease the value. And in many cases, you strategically want to make visible what your customers value, and you want to make invisible what will lower the value if your customer were to see it. Now, we also have results value, and this is one of the most interesting ones, probably the most important one for your customer. So the results value could either be the economic value of the outcome of the work, right? So if your customer hired you, did they save any money, right? And it could also be the emotional, spiritual value of the outcome, right? So by hiring you, it gave me peace of mind, right? By hiring this specific professional, it gave me the feeling that I don't have to worry about it, that I hired a person that knows what they're doing. And it gives me that spiritual, that emotional resolution, per se, to work with that specific service provider. So are you in the business or creating not just economic value, but emotional or spiritual value? That will increase the overall value of your work. And of course, we have our guarantees. Is our work guaranteed? Do we take away the risk of our customers paying us? And if it didn't work, can they get their money back? How much of their money can they get back? Maybe if there's no money back, do you guarantee your work in a way that you will keep doing it and keep doing revisions and keep doing different versions of it until the customer gets exactly what they want based on that predetermined outcome that you had in the value conversation? So if you provide a guarantee, whether it's money back or a specific performance guarantee with a specific outcome guarantee, that could increase the value of your services. Now, there's also a really cool one. It's called membership value. So does your customer feel that they're part of a private or exclusive club by using you, right? So do you cater to every single customer out there and you have 1 million customers, or do you have a private, exclusive group of customers, and that in itself gives sort of intrinsic value to your services because it's more scarce, and also because that customer is one of the few that were selected or that qualify to work with you, right? So there's a private, exclusive club effect. There's also loyalty programs, right? So does your business make your customer feel like they're part of your business? They're part of your brand. You know, do they continue to get benefits and value not just during the engagement, after the engagement. Also, association with the brand, right? Harley Davidson is a great example of that. Harley Davidson is probably one of the only brands out there that their customers tattoo on their bodies, right? So I've seen a Harley Davidson tattoo. I never seen a Honda or a BMW tattoo, although those are great brands. You do see Harley Davidson tattoos. People feel there's value to be associated with your brand. Then lastly, we have tail value. And tail value is best understood as our post-warranty value, right? So what happens after their service is completed? Is there a warranty? What happens after the warranty expires? To stay within the car and motorcycle analogy. So if I buy a specific brand of car or motorcycle, will I have access to parts later on? Will they be experts that know how to service it, even if it's post-warranty? Are there any benefits post-service? It's also an important thing. Do you get anything after the work is done? Do you continue to have a sort of a long-lasting effect to the outcome? So is that outcome immediate, or does that outcome last for a very long time? There's also, taking your work product and going to another provider. So is working with you or buying your product or buying your service going to be something that I can discontinue and easily go to someone else without it being a big hassle? That's obviously really, really important, and in many, many times is completely overlooked. And of course, as I mentioned, the warranty itself. Is there a warranty? Not just a guarantee of the outcome, but is there a warranty for 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever, that if something goes wrong, you will be there to respond at no additional cost. So in a nutshell, there are many ways you can create value for your customers. There are many things that your customers perceive as valuable or not valuable. You as a service provider can at least control most of the 8 that I talked about earlier. So we have in summary, we have our 8 opportunities to create value, which is positioning, availability or scarcity, pricing, understanding, performance, results, membership, and tail. Hope you like this, and I hope you can create more value for your customers and increase your prices and have a profitable firm.